do treat you badly.
I'm joking, no.
Anyway,
No.
there's Robina. We've got, therefore, I believe. Hi, Robina. We can't hear you, but you're there. Anyway, good.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, now we
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Even better. Brilliant. So, welcome everybody to this Environment Committee meeting. Quite a lot of things on the agenda, so therefore I believe we have no apologies for absence. We're all here. Good. Are there any declarations of interest?
No, not for me.
No? Nobody's a member of the bowls or the, no, we're talking about
No.
this later. Okay, in that case, the minutes from the previous Environment Committee held on the 19th of December last year. Are there any corrections that anybody feels need to be made? Otherwise, are we happy to receive them?
Righty.
Yeah, do we need to vote on that? No. No, okay, good, excellent. I'm always still a little vague on what we do and what we don't need to vote on, but it's
Standing order. Have a read.
but since we've got the chair of the Resources Committee who knows the standing orders and the clerk, I'll be okay. Then we have
Only a rough guide, standing orders.
it's not so. So then, report, to receive a report and note the updated information. Do we wish to have the town clerk or the estates manager speak to any of this, or are we happy to receive the updated report? We are happy to receive, yeah.
Can I just update you on the final item, which is the email I had a reply, so I'll read it out.
Oh,
to you.
fantastic.
The reply said the main purpose of the section 19 report was to provide an overview of the flooding incident. I'll try that again, I'm sorry. The main purpose of the section 19 report was to provide an overview of the flooding incident and its impact, its causes and factors, and outline the roles and response of those involved. The recommendations were made were limited to preliminary screening of possible options. It's not a strategy or action plan for specific options. By water diversion plan, referring to creating a diversion plan of the River Grey Ouse, we would view that as being covered by the high-level recommendation we made within table 9.7, appraise a suite of capital options for flood risk management in Buckingham, and this recommendation sits with the Environment Agency. So basically saying it's basically a review of what happened and possible strategic options to go forward, and they would expect the Environment Agency to look at option a diversion as part of the appraiser suite of capital options for risk management in Buckingham. And I didn't get that until after the agenda went out.
Okay,
Thank you. Updating.
Robin?
Mr. Chairman, just number 8, taking the point that you said, anything about interests, whatever, it might be an idea that we move item 8, because there's some other reports that we're waiting for to do with that, that we deal with those as a confidential item.
The community centre survey, yes.
Yeah, I think there's some other things, but I think it should be
So
better
actually on
moved
the-
confidential.
It might be on the agenda for confidential, is it?
No.
No,
it's not, okay.
We
No.
don't have anything much to update.
I know.
Steve is taking over that.
and I'm just proposing that we take that, well, all the information, Steve's done his work as a confidential item.
Yeah, okay, fine. So here it just says that he's taken over. So are you proposing that we
Yeah.
put this on the next?
Or if it's ready, I'm not saying it's got.
Oh, if
you know,
it's ready, it should be.
I'm not saying it's on the next agenda. I'm looking at the town clerk and it might not be ready, in which case,
I have nothing else to add other than.
but I
Steve
do
is
think
taking
it should go on the
So-
confidential agenda item.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
But nobody seconded that. They can't just have.
I don't think we need to vote on.
If it requires to be confidential, obviously I'll put it in.
Hmm.
But there are criteria that need to be fulfilled for it to be a confidential item.
Yeah,
But at the moment, I don't have anything to tell you other than this is being passed on to Steve to pick up and drive it forward. I know he's been in touch with the community centre to arrange a meeting to get some actions and basically, move things on.
Lisa.
Thank you. because the last meeting we had, you had just, the town hall just received the constitution for the community centre. Is it possible that we have the constitution, the lease, like much as like we've got something bowls club and the tennis club, we have it for the community centre as well. And then that could go on confidential because the two bits are tonight. So we have the lease, we've got the constitution now, and whatever survey has come up that we need to see, just so we've got all the information in one place.
The survey, to clarify, is the one that you've already had. It's the structural
Yeah.
survey that we've talked about. I think there's been some confusion. It's somebody thinks that we've done another survey or we're doing another survey. And the survey is what you've had, and what Steve is looking at some of the actions that came out of that survey, meeting up with the community centre and how we can work together as a partnership and sort out any of those issues with the building that came out of the survey. But yeah, the constitution and the list, I thought I had something around it, but I haven't.
No, they haven't. Is that okay that we go on next as confidential?
I think that,
Be an amendment to your.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that with your respect, Chair, because I think that we need to read all three things together. We can't deal with one thing in isolation. We need to see them all together and maybe consider them as a total to do with it. And then if there's any recommendations or actions, because everything might link to everything else, we don't know what that is, but we need to do that. And I think it'd be much easier that way if it's confidential. The rules of declarations of interest apply and everything. It'd be far simpler to have that conversation that way.
yeah. Okay, so the proposal is that this goes on to the next agenda item with an update from whatever Steve has then, and that we also have sight again of
the three documents.
And that will then automatically, I think, require for it to go into confidential.
Yeah.
And so I think that is then, I don't think this is a proposal that we need to vote
You
on.
proposed.
Fine, okay, are we all happy with this? Okay, that's you now.
So it was unanimous.
Everyone was in agreement.
Thank you.
On the action list, it just occurs to me that perhaps we should have something on there about the bridges and the process, because I know for various reasons it's been quite protracted. It would be nice to be able to track progress or lack of and that sort of thing. It might be helpful.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a proposal. I'll just put it on.
Incidentally, just for clarity, that's not a covert not that anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just I think we should be looking.
Okay. No, that's quite reasonable.
Yeah.
Get that put on.
And we're spending quite a lot of money on those
Correct.
bridges, so Okay. Anything else on the action report?
On the agenda mostly.
Okay then. So are we happy to receive it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on. So the budget, this is, as far as I understand it, just a restatement of the latest figures and next year's budget. So we have looked at this several times before at various meetings, and we've agreed it all at the preset meeting. So therefore, I think we could just receive the latest figures and know next year's budget without further. Yes, Robin.
Just one question, because when we done the precept, we obviously went through these budgets and then the budget, which is the preset budget, and then there was in what the town clerk and yourself are trying to do with ascertain what monies we've got anywhere and whether we've got any. Well, we were really looking for underspends, which we had a job to find, didn't we? Through you, have we got any of those payments that we've got to go out, things which have come in and haven't come in? Is there anything significant which might increase our reserves? Because I don't think we can do anything much else with them in there, because you look at them and they are partway through the financial year, you see. So that some of this stuff in those budgets and zero spent because you haven't had the bill in, and some of them like that. Without going into the minute item, just to ask through you, that at some point we probably won't meet now before end of the financial year. But can I, through you, suggest that we allow yourself and the town clerk to, if there is any underspends, that we agree that we can put those into reserves?
That I've got no, other than the one, the listing.
Yeah, but-
Nothing is.
No, I know, but if we do have any, if we propose that allows you to do it rather than be sat with it for a further meeting, because we can't actually make that decision once the financial year is finished, because that's that year's budget. It's just, the next year's budget will be from 31st of March. So,
Yeah, okay.
I-
Lisa?
Thank you. The Chandos Park, electricity and water, they are quite high, aren't they? Are we looking at anything that can bring those costs down in any way? Or is that?
We're always reviewing the supply contracts that we've had,
Okay.
and Chandos Park is one of them that still needs, we need to find a better contract, but it's really difficult to find better supply contract, but we're always reviewing it and always shopping around.
So, aren't they?
That one and the other very small ones that we've got left, everything else is really quite good supply contracts with.
Thank you for looking at that.
Any other comments? No?
only just a proposal which wasn't seconded, so, and that we agree with the town clerk to go through to earmark reserves if there's any underspend. Yeah,
Oh,
don't
I
matter.
agree with that.
Yeah, no, we haven't just agreed it, but it's a financial thing, so we should really either second it and agree it.
If it
Really.
needs seconding, I'm happy to second. But I thought we
Yeah.
did.
And it's a minute.
Obviously, I mean, our reserves belong to the council anyway, so your recommendation and resources will need to look at all the budgets and the financial year, but yeah.
Yeah, so the committee keeps that budget, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
To
okay.
drift into some other thing.
Is everybody, in that case, raise your hands if you do agree with
I'm going to
it.
say that the preset report I put together isn't, there are places where I've said that needs to go in earmarks.
I know.
But so you're proposing, just to be clear for what.
It's so that you have the liberty to do it.
So underspends that are not in the preset report to have a look at. No.
Yeah, it allows you to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's easy.
It's not telling you what to do, it's saying just to do it
Everybody
generally.
has raised their hands,
Perfect, thank you.
yeah, except obviously for Robina. Okay. And I don't think we need to vote. Yeah, or you can raise your hand, obviously. Unfortunately, for the purposes of voting, it makes no real difference. I don't think we need to vote on receiving and noting the budgets.
Nope.
So let's move on to the Climate Cafe, and we are receiving a verbal update from them, please.
Yeah, this was just update members that Nina met with the Climate Cafe group, which is a new group that's come to form in the town, the national initiative, and about information sharing. And so they're aiming to meet in the library on a Saturday. There will be a meeting that's open for all, and the first one is going to be a speaker from the national initiative group coming to speak to everyone. And what they were sort of asking Nina or asking the town council was to help promote the group, and possibly have a table for the spring fair, possibly come to the town meeting and share information and contacts. So she's quite a successful meeting. And any, you know, I'm going to update everyone with more information and dates and everything as they come. But she was asking, or the group were asking to have either an officer or a councillor sort of come certainly to the first few meetings. And the chair's kindly said that she'll try and make the first few meetings.
I won't be here for all of them, but I don't expect, but anyway, yeah, Lisa. Oh, sorry.
Just say progress has been made and we'll update everyone to get more information.
Excellent.
My only comment would really be if would Nina be going to the Saturday meeting?
Probably not if she'll stay in contact with the group, but I thought
So I wouldn't want
good opportunity to want some of the councillors to.
that. Yeah, because that's voluntary. What we do is voluntary. We won't want to have her on a Saturday.
Yes, better for
Thank you.
councillors to do this.
Yeah.
Robin.
I mean, obviously we haven't, and whether it's appropriate or not, who the people who are in the organisation doing this. I'm very happy to support anything to do with the climate, but having just supported the BART bus, turning up an event and then finding out that it actually wasn't that wasn't the purpose, the bus was the purpose there. I want to be assured that this is what I call a community group and not another, and that we're not purposing time and effort to something that isn't that. Because we did agree to have it out there and it turned out to be something completely different when it took place. The promotion of it wasn't necessarily the BART bus.
Yeah. So with this one, I don't think we have any indication that they're anything other than a community group. I know that some other towns and places around Buckinghamshire have these taking place, and my understanding is, although I haven't been to one, that they are just that.
In which case, I'm pleased to hear that. What I would say, if it's appropriate and it's feed into our annual town meeting in March, maybe it'd be appropriate to invite them to come to the annual town meeting so that they can.
I think they've said that is what what Lee has just told us, that is what they would like to do, and I think I don't think we need to vote on this one.
No.
It looks like it would be very well. They would be very welcome. Yeah. It would be a good thing because this is something that genuinely tries to do. We've been trying to get community groups off the ground and haven't so far been successful.
Yeah.
So this would be a good, and it's always works better if the town council can't make community groups happen.
Yeah.
So it only tends to work when they come to us, and then of course we can support them. And I'm sure the communications team can also support them in an appropriate form.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comments on this one, or would you like? Shall we move on to benches in public places? So that we have a new policy that we should receive and agree. And there's having read through it, not that I recall every line, but there seems to be a lot of detail on. Including quite a lot of different eventualities. So I'm inviting comments if there are any. Fran.
Just looking at the what is it? In front of me just now. It says that 3.7 benches ordered from town council supplier. And applicants are requested to pay in full after the bench has been installed. Would there be any deposit paid or anything like that prior to the ordering? Just to ensure that we are going to not end up with massive bills for lots of benches that people then disappear and don't pay for.
I was worried about that as well.
Yeah, we can certainly amend that to be a bit more secure.
Yeah.
Would members prefer that to say we would expect payment before we order? At least a deposit paid.
Good portion paid.
Yeah.
No, I think we could change that if it turns out to be wrong. You've got to trust people to a degree. If it's proved to be wrong, amend it out.
Yeah. What kind of, do we need to decide what kind of deposit?
Half, maybe?
50%, I should think, yeah.
50%?
I don't think somebody would pay out half of it and then not
Follow through, and then the whole thing. Yeah.
So can I clarify then the proposal, this is Fran's proposal?
Yeah. Second.
3.7 is that we will require a 50% deposit before we order the bench.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And that's seconded by
me.
Thank you.
Yeah, Robin.
I read it last night and then I read it again today. I was wondering whether it reflects. We put the motion to council and it went through council, which we referred it back here to, quite rightly, put policy forward. It hasn't got any, it could read this on our own land, but there is a situation that we might want the appropriate place for a bench might not be on our own land. It might be somewhere else in the town, some other area of whatever. But through you, just as town clerk, and the recommendation, because it could limit us at a later date when somebody comes back and say, we want a bench, we say, we can't do anything about facilitating that because it isn't on our land, which lots of town isn't our land, and some of the best places for benches might not be our land. I think we need to reflect that something along the lines that to facilitate it, but not to make sure it isn't just on town council land.
If they got permission, if they got landowners' permission, for example.
Well, I think
May I say, I mean, this is it's almost like a contract. So this is what we can, and we are saying we will deliver on. When it's not our land, it's very difficult for us to categorically stay. But I'd like to think that our common sense would be if we could help somebody get a bench or put them in contact with the landowner or help out or order on that behalf.
I mean, we have to let you we can't guarantee it.
No.
Permission from the landowner.
I understand that. I'm just thinking that this policy will be around in 4 years' time. Someone looks at it and someone comes along and says, well, you know, we can facilitate bench, but it's not on our land. I think that we need something in there by way of facilitate a bench, but something along the lines of that we would seek to facilitate a bench if it wasn't on our land, but that isn't within our gift to do so. Something along that, so that members in future, when they read the policy, don't come around and say, well, we can't do that because it isn't on our land. And then the person comes along with, because people won't recognise the local authority, they'll just see council and bench and where it wants to be. And it could be that the landowner doesn't want it. But I think the town clerk, what town clerk says, we would always seek to do something. I think we need to actually have it in some form of way where it would fit in this, without changing all the words. I don't know. That was what I drew out of it, because the principle of the motion was to be inclusive and give it, and not everywhere will be our land, as I said. So some wording along that lines at the appropriate place, that we will facilitate and assist where possible. I don't think we can say we can give, because where possible, because that might not be a fiscal thing. It might just be an email saying, would you object?
Yeah, okay. So I've had several people, and because I have no idea when Robina put her hand up, I'm suggesting that we ask Robina first.
Hi, yeah, I put it up before Robin was speaking, so.
My apologies.
Okay, I just want to say a couple of comments. 3.1 says on council owned land, so that should be clear in itself where the benches could be. I completely agree with the 50% deposit required for a bench, and the question I wanted to ask was, do we need to write that, you know, there's only a certain number of benches per year or something? Say, for example, you get 30 requests straight away. I mean, how many benches are there going to be?
Is it going to?
That's an interesting question. Thank you. I mean, I think it's probably relatively unlikely that there'll be 30, but do we want to have an upper limit? So I'll now ask, I think, Fran and then Margaret. You both. Fran?
Sorry, thank you. The thing about, as Rebecca has pointed out already, it does say on town council land in there in 3.1. I don't think that we can make any promises, however vague, as to what we can do to facilitate anything on anything other than our land, realistically. And I think that just confuses the issue, really. And this is a Buckingham Town Council policy statement for benches being put on our land. We've no jurisdiction over anybody else's land whatsoever. So I think that just clouds things really to and makes it more complicated than it needs to be. And there is something in there, and I'm trying to find it now, about the number of the number of benches that can be in a particular area to 3.6. 3.6, yeah. Exact location of the bench will be determined by the council depending on the need and availability. Whilst the council tries to locate a bench at a requested site, due to the popularity of some locations, this cannot be guaranteed. the council will limit the number of commemorative benches in particular areas. So it shall not distract from the prime purpose of the open space. So I don't know if that does cover Robina's point, or whether that needs a little bit more clarity in it.
That's fine.
Thank you. Margaret?
Yeah, I don't think we can state a specific upper limit on benches, but maybe just in that, I think probably 3.6 is adequate, unless you just wanted to put a little thing in about the suitability of more benches in any particular. Well, it's there already, I think. It's fine. Just on the point about helping people if they want a bench on land that we don't own, the only suggestion, although I do take the point, we can't legislate for when it's not on our land. We could put another heading, presumably heading 4, although I'm a bit confused because we've got 4.0 and we haven't got a new heading for the 4. I don't know. Anyway, if it's 4 or 5 heading benches elsewhere, we could just put a little phrase in where possible, if someone is a member of the Buckingham community is requesting a bench on land other than Buckingham Town Council land, we will facilitate this where possible, or something like that, with no
commitment.
Yeah.
I don't think we can commit that.
Yeah.
No.
But
That doesn't sound like it would tie us to anything, but it would give the
we've already, through Chairman, done it in lots of places in the past.
Sorry, I was just wondering about the cost implication on doing that and how it could be charged, etc. But
Might just be a question of a
may I ask our officers what their views are on whether that is a practical solution or whether that raises all sorts of practical complications?
No, that's what we've done in the past, to be honest. And each bench is taken on case by case and where it is and it's suitable.
Okay.
We're naturally helpful.
Like the one outside the monitor, it's not on our land.
Yeah. So we have 2 amendments that we haven't voted on yet. So the first amendment was that we require a 50% deposit, and I can now no longer recall who proposed it. So Fran proposed it and Lisa seconded it. Can we vote on this one, please? Okay, so that's unanimous for everybody in the room. And the second one is that we would include a suitable phrase that where possible, we will help facilitate benches in places that are not on our land. And that might just be putting somebody in touch with or helping them out. You need to speak to X. And I think maybe as little as that. So do we have a proposal?
I'll second Margaret's proposal.
Okay, so Margaret as proposer, Robin, seconder, can we vote on this one, please? So we have, no, you need to do the.
Sorry, I think that's 6, isn't it? I'm struggling to see what you've done at the end there.
That's 7, I think.
That's 7.
And,
Another person's appeared.
Abstain.
and 1 abstention. Did you want to abstain or?
Oh, no.
Okay, fine, yeah, so I think that was 7 in fact.
Fran, I didn't count you there.
But I did.
Yeah, you did.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 abstention.
Don't worry, Fran, we
Oh,
count.
sorry.
I have a different view.
Yes.
I actually have a better view of the whole room. As the chair, well, yeah, as being in on this sort of rather uncomfortable frame. Right. Okay then. So are we happy to move on to the next agenda point?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa.
Quick question. When we asked where it says about that we asked them to pay after it's been installed, should we include a period of time within so many weeks of it being installed, or
The remaining 50%, yeah.
Would normally expect an invoice to be paid within 28 days is fairly standard.
it just tidies it up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but if it's a standard payment period of 28 days in an invoice.
That's usually what we say unless anybody's got any.
No, it's just that we've got policies for payment, haven't we? So
Okay, we're happy with it then.
Okay,
Thank you.
so then Brackley Road Cemetery handbook update to receive a report regarding the updated cemetery handbook. So had quite a few things in there. Lee, do you want to point us to
No,
any key features of it?
We keep a log of all, as the year goes on, we keep a log of all the things that need updating, and then we do it once a year to try and keep it simple. I think, yeah, I mean, it's quite self-explanatory after.
Okay, thank you, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. In the handbook on paragraph 2.10, which I think is page 4, it talks about quite appropriately and not riding a bicycle in the cemetery. Now, I did wonder, are there bike racks at the entrance to the cemetery? Would that be a good site for a bike rack so that anybody arriving at the cemetery on a bicycle would then have somewhere secure to fix it to?
Yeah, good idea.
And also lots of people are riding scooters, so I'd imagine if bikes aren't allowed to be ridden, the same apply, they'd need somewhere to train out.
Yeah, do you mean one of those, presumably you don't mean a mobility scooter?
Don't mean a mobility scooter.
Yes, so maybe it should be scooters, yes, bikes and scooters. And I think we could probably add skateboards and all sorts of things, but I don't think they're.
Don't think you get many.
I don't think that would be a particular issue. Yes, Anthony.
If I put my pedant's hat on, if I come along on a bicycle and I've got, let's say, tools and a bag to work on it, and I push that round, I know it is pedantic, but just to cover all eventualities. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So riding or just.
Says ride.
For the riding of, yeah, as long as you see my point. Yeah.
I want to keep my bike with me, so I probably would wheel it up.
Yeah, I think pushing it, because the riding is the speed of it.
A lot of
isn't it?
bikes are long,
Yeah.
Better to say than not.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so I think if somebody pushed it, we wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
And just if we double check that then, if it is,
Yeah,
just make sure it says riding.
you might want
Does
to
say
take
right.
your flowers up on the bag, or you
Yeah,
might have got your.
I think we understand what the point was, yeah. No, thank you, Anthony.
So look at the implications of putting the bike rack in.
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
For future committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I don't think we need to vote on that because we bring it to a future committee. I don't think we need to vote on this anyway, because we're just receiving it. Are there any other comments on it? Okay, excellent. Then we are to receive a verbal update on memorial testing.
Yeah, it's just update members, we've got the memorial testing. Something.
So brains fell out.
I'm a bit shocked there. Stop shaking now.
Really?
Okay. Everybody compose yourselves.
Yeah.
We get on with this update.
So we've started testing the memorials at the cemetery. We've had a professional stonemason look at all the memorials over 1.5 meters. And today we did about a third of the memorials in the old part of the cemetery. And we're going to carry on next week and the next couple of weeks to get all of the old part of the cemetery done this year.
Okay.
So far we found 12 memorials that are unsafe and we've made them temporarily safe, and then we'll investigate ways to make them safe. Either find the owners, repair them, or find other ways of doing it when it comes to it. So work in progress on that.
Brilliant, thank you, Lee.
Robin.
Always very nervous about memorial testing. Historically, when we did memorial testing for the very first time, it wasn't us, it was the illustrious district council at the time. We owned the land, but we hadn't actually become the verifier at that point. So they were the verifier, and they came in and did testing. I'm pleased to hear the sympathetic and careful way that we're approaching this. But what happened at that time was people found out after the memorial testing had been done that loads of things had been done, and there was no conversation about whatever. We ended up with a public meeting next door, and quite rightly, people were very, 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 very upset. So if there is an issue, I'm sure that the chairman will receive that from the office and deal with it head on, because there are times when people will be upset. We need to make sure that our response around that, and I know it will be, but you have to say it, will be appropriate. And it is an historical record to look back on how not to do a topple test. And I'm sure we're not doing it that way. Because it was very unpleasant affair all round, I think. So I'm just, look, anything will come through the chair and the vice chair and whatever to make sure that we actually are sympathetic and respond quickly in those circumstances before it gets out of control, which what happened last time.
Thank you. Yeah, Claire.
What I would say is they have to be safe and bounded to make them safe. I appreciate it's not great, but we do our best to do it as tastefully and as securely as possible. The ones that we found today, I don't think we found any that showed any sign of being tended. But obviously we do our absolute best to get hold of the next of kin and the owners and update them. If we come across ones throughout the testing where clearly they are being tended and somebody has some interest in them, we will go out of our way to prioritise the contact on that person and do everything we can to make sure that they hear from us before they turn up there and find it.
Thank you.
But so far they have been most of the ones that I found today were well over 100 years old and didn't show any sign at all of any clean there. They're obviously still extremely important and they've been dealt with and treated appropriately. But I have to say, it's not awesome having a sign on it that says, unsafe for water, but we do have to explain to people, don't lean on it or touch it, because we have identified that they are dangerous. But council stuff is completely right. It's a very emotive subject and we're being careful.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further wishes to talk on it, Paul? In that case, we can go to the pleasant topic of vandalism costs for the year. We have a report from the estate manager.
I hope the information is in the report, just to update members what the cost over the last year, quite a lot of vandalism we received. A lot of it has been graffiti, not just in our park, but all over the town. It's affected all sorts of different things across, from the start time, but also you may have noticed the bus stop onto Brackley Road. We've removed all the panels from the side of it. Just because the plastic was being, cleaned off graffiti so many times, it just ruined the plastic. So that's one we still have to look at and if we need to replace something in plastic again or replace the whole bus stop. We're sort of investigating that at the moment. See what the best thing is, but yeah, it's taken a lot of our time, not just the guys' time out clearing off the graffiti off things, painting over things, but this time checking CCTV, speaking to the police. It takes an awful lot of time and it has a big impact. The police have been doing quite well on certain things. They've got in touch with various caught a few people, either with our CCTV or through other means. It's something we're still working on. But we had the toilets in Cornwall Meadow were hit a few weeks ago, pretty bad. There was arson, there was vandalism of toilet roll holders. We managed to get it all up and running the day after it happened. And then the next day, or next Saturday, so at the end of that week, it got vandalised again. So it's having an impact on people being able to use it. So it's our action. Again, we're working with the police. We passed on all the CCTV. That time we got some good footage, a couple of names. But at that time, there were two different groups doing it. So the kids quite young. The police said they would go to the school and try and deal with it that way. It does have a big impact on cost, foreign. Gets a bit frustrating after dealing with it for a year.
Yeah.
It's a bit frustrating.
Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we should, but is that one reason why some town councils and other authorities have, you have to pay 20p or something because it does maybe act as a bit of a deterrent?
I've seen it in use. The problem is now, not many people actually carry anything.
No.
By the time you've installed a car, the cost has got up just for the car being so that probably decided
That's something else to vandalise as well.
Super glue and a 20p piece.
Nobody can get in.
Yes.
No easy answers.
No.
I don't know if it's true, but I did hear that some of the dreaded car park machines that weren't working was because of vandalism. I mean, that's causing everybody huge grief. And also another piece of graffiti vandalism. I walked along the railway walk, and both of the bridges are absolutely plastered in the ugly, horrible stuff, which is, you know, a really horrible blot on the landscape.
Yeah. Yes, throughout the one of the issues, definitely the longer one about the ticket machines was due to vandalism. Clearly, it's a bigger issue in this entire area. That isn't included in the 6,000. That's just the cost to us as a town council. The massive cost, if you add in to the taxpayer as a whole, across the town is going to be massively more than that figure.
It's not the grief it's causing, it's really winding people up when those machines don't work. So it is affecting, although it's not us as the town council who are responsible for it, our people are affected badly.
I would say, I think it was actually, I just didn't make it any better, but it wasn't mindless vandalism on the ticket machines the first time, it was actually a theft.
Sorry. I didn't catch the last bit.
But
It was a theft.
I was there, yeah.
they left the ticket machine there.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, there's a lot in the report. I thank Team Officer Sturt. Obviously, vandalism is a continuous irritant in all societies, and all communities. I mean, in the report, it cites CCTV. I'm always conscious that we have invested in CCTV in the town council, and I think with the appropriate management of that CCTV, we have managed to have some reasonable outcomes and produced evidence. I think at some point we need to review our strategy on CCTV, because it's like people probably don't know in Buckingham that there isn't any cameras from Buckinghamshire Council in Buckingham, as I know of, and there are some which are privately owned, and there are ours. And many years ago, we were going to have some cameras installed in Buckingham, and they were going to be connected to the Owlbury CCTV centre, but that never happened. That's why Buckingham Town Council stepped in and put CCTV cameras in, because there was a need for them. So because Owlbury chose not to fund them here, it was a project from the district council in conjunction with the police. But I do think we need to review the policy. I think we need to look at it, and if we find through recommendation that we need to look at increasing those CCTV cameras, rather than just say we need more cameras, I don't think that's appropriate. We then look at how we fund that, and if out of that recommendation it coincidentally said we need to increase our sites or increase whatever we do, and we then at that point, I think we'd have a very good case to actually on the community basis to put a bid into the community board for them to fund them. Because at that point we could show the evidence that we've done, we can show the good practice that we've done, we can show the cooperation with the police, how successful Buckingham Town Council have been in not only deterring crime, but in making sure that when people commit crime, the appropriate actions are taken. And I think we can hold our head up high on that, but I think we have to always review things. I'd like to propose that we ask for a review in them, and at a future time, a report is brought back, and then one of the recommendations from that may be that we go to the community board with a report.
Second that.
But that's not committing us to anything. And
I would say good way ahead of you. Lee and I were talking about this only about 2 hours ago.
one must be psychic.
We're also looking at other possible funding streams as well as the community board. So it will be something as we our current cameras are due for renewal anyway, so we have no choice but to have to do something. And I think it's probably worth having Machine County to work out if they're going to do anything to protect their car park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
It must be costing them money, and clearly there's a need for it.
Yeah, right.
I just noted in 2.5 that, the previous reports of criminal damage have resulted in young offenders receiving home visits from Thames Valley police officers and letters of apology being sent to the town council. Is there any further sort of actions that we can take from that? Because letters of apology, if it's a persistent offence that these people are causing, I think, and I know that quite a lot of people would think that these people should be working to that apology. I think it's quite disgusting that our town gets hit like this. I used to represent down the road at Maids Morton, and someone thought it was funny to graffiti a swastika on one of the fence panels. And I think the community as a whole get a bit miffed off when these letters of apology get sent in, and then 2 weeks later these people then recommit an offence. Is there any potential ways that we can deal with this via sort of
I think the problem is that we have to rely on the police that they are implementing their policies and the law as is appropriate. So if they tell us that the person that they have caught is a child, and that they are eligible for and the most appropriate, what's the word I'm looking for? The most appropriate punishment is a community resolution with a letter of apology. There's not much more we can do. I mean, last night I had an email from the police about somebody they caught very recently, and I have gone back to the officer to ask for some more detail as to what exactly those conditions were, so that we're not being fobbed off necessarily for doing the least. But the reality is if you've got a 13-year-old child who has not been in trouble before and has just been stupid because they've been thrown up in front of their friends, then the most appropriate punishment is going to be the police officer with a community restoration or some sort of but I absolutely share your frustration. But we are in communication with the neighbourhood team, and we will push, especially where somebody's been identified to have done this multiple times and caused thousands of pounds worth of damage. The question will be asked, are you sure this is the most appropriate resolution in this case? Just because it doesn't seem to fit the nature of the crime. I hope that sort of explains, but the police's hands are slightly tied in that with a child, you do have to give, if they've not been in trouble before, you do have to give them a second chance.
In principle, that seems appropriate. Robina, I wasn't sure whether you had your hand up there earlier, so I thought I saw it, but you might have been just doing something.
No, I didn't have my hand up.
Okay, sorry, I didn't want to overlook you. Lisa, I think next.
Thanks. I was going to say that it is really down to the police and the courts as to how punishment is dealt out, but I do really like the fact that you're in touch with them and have got that step in between to say whether it's, come on now, it needs to be more appropriate or not, but our hands will be tied. Yeah, thank you.
Robin.
Firstly, I was very pleased to hear that the principal officers are looking at the CCTV. Nevertheless, they've been having proposed that we take that route of action and that a future report comes back so that we have an action on the action report to discuss this. I still would like to propose that we do that along the lines of the suggestion about going out to funding and everything, so that we can actually then track it through the action list. And we can also talk to the town clerk and the green space officer about how it's progressing. And at the appropriate time, it would lead naturally that we should talk about these things at an appropriate time in a press release when we do, to show that we actually spend the money. Because I think people probably think it's the other authority that does it, and it isn't. It's this town council, and this town council should take the credit for that. But that can follow later.
So what was the proposal?
The proposal was that we have a report on future need of CCTV.
Yeah.
Depending on that report findings, at that point, we would probably make a recommendation to seek to go to the community board for additional funds. There's no timeliness to anything. It allows the town clerk to bring us a report of what she thinks is necessary, but then we can at least track it through the action list and keep an eye on it.
Would you possibly consider removing the proposed community board and just look, say, external services, because we are looking at that?
I was going
Well,
to put in.
Yeah, I'm happy to remove the word community board. The budget keeps getting removed by the hour, so it's being removed slowly as it is. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable. I accept that and look at funding
Financial stream.
financial streams or something, but I think then we can audit it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think I now understand it. This is a proposal that we, and was seconded by Lisa.
I believe that is unanimous.
Unanimous report with all the votes in the room.
And at the appropriate time, you'll do a press release to the.
Yes.
I don't think people know that we pay for it.
No, absolutely. And just to follow up from that, my understanding is that there is a plan to have a communication about the cost of the vandalism, a public communication. Anyway, did you mention? One of you mentioned that, or am I imagining this?
We're going to do a lot of well, push again. I'm sure you saw some of the comments we put out already about the issues we're having with vandalism, and I think we will maybe push, especially when the taxpayers realise that their bills are going up, and actually say one of the things that we are spending a lot of money on
It's vandalism.
is vandalism.
Now it's the time to pick up again.
And that's it, the winter has been bad, so the summer is going to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not just the monetary cost, it's the staff time costs as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm taking it that it's agreed for you, Chair, that we can do some communication around this. I think this is the time to do it right now, in advance of us publishing our precept. So I think it's important that press release around that and the wording of it goes out now so that people realise that that is a contributing factor. So that when they get their council tax bill, they've already had part of it. And maybe those parents or adults who are doing vandalism, and it's not always children, it's quite often adults who do vandalism, may take a little bit more considerate about what they're doing, because money which is spent on that could be spent on doing other things across the board.
I'd completely agree with Councillor Studbury here, in the sense that we should offer possibly an incentive to those committing these acts of vandalism. I think that we should possibly even expand things for younger people to do and things like that. I think a lot of people don't have much to do. That's the trouble with it.
Yeah, okay, this might be taking us slightly beyond.
Beyond.
On the agenda. It is nonetheless a good
I think
point.
that's a question for Buckinghamshire Council's great
Yeah.
bigger people in the world to actually address that. If we had the budget to address it, we would.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
of
I
course.
feel that we have had quite a good conversation around this. And that maybe we are ready to move on to the next agenda point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So any updates from representatives on outside bodies? I think Sue, you sent round a note already.
We've done climate intent.
Yeah, so my apologies. Yes, I've skipped one. Climate emergency action plan, an update. We've obviously seen the, so my first question is how recent is that? It all seems to be last year still.
Must give it long ago.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
There are a few things ongoing, the tiny forest projects, it's hopefully really some good news about that soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously the most recent town council, annual town meeting was still the one last year, yeah. Robin.
Yeah, I did see an email, I think before Christmas from Nina about the Tiny Forest project, which I did respond to. It's not for tiny people.
It's not tiny trees.
It's not tiny trees. It's a tiny forest thing, and it's I think that's a really good scheme that we've agreed, and hopefully we can progress that. But it might be worth sending it back around again, because not everybody may have seen that email, wants to be involved in it within the town council. And
maybe once we're ready to progress it,
yeah,
which would be in the next few weeks or not at all. So
This week, actually.
yeah,
Quite quick.
yeah.
because
I mean, my spade is returning from Milton Keynes, so I might be able to make that.
so the reason why it's called tiny is because it's lots of trees on a small surface area.
Yeah,
And that's what makes it a tiny forest as opposed to tiny trees.
not bonfires.
Are there any other comments on the update of the climate emergency action plan? No? Okay, now we get into the update from representatives on outside bodies. I'm glad that somebody other than me is keeping an eye on the order of the agenda.
Well, I haven't got anything to report that's from the meeting because it doesn't happen until Wednesday, but there it is.
We'll have it next.
Yeah, one thing, Buckinghamshire Fire Authority may be challenged. There is what they call the urban rescue facility at Aylesbury, which came in after the 9/11 terrorist attack. It was introduced as a reaction to it, which is basically they got the equipment there to respond to major fires, terrorism equipment, plane crashes. And Dutch government has indicated verbally, and we're awaiting, the fire authorities awaiting communication where they are going to cut the close to £1 million grant which supports that facility. And there's very little we can do about it apart from ask people to read the agenda of that meeting, and if it's something that the town council, if it happens, and they say they're doing the thing, we haven't decided yet, but they've actually informed the chief that they're going to actually close it, so in advance of sending the letter. So, but that would be quite a major thing for us. What people don't realise, what that actually does, it offers resilience to all the other services across Buckinghamshire, the Thames Valley, Oxford, straight down into right out across Oxfordshire, right down into Hertfordshire, London, and across. This facility actually provides equipment and stuff for everyone else. So if we lose that, it will have an effect on Buckingham. If we had a major incident in Buckingham, heaven forbid that we want to ever see a major incident, that centre won't be there, and those people won't be able to react with other emergency services. The equipment won't be there. So I think you need to be aware of it. You need to monitor it. And if it so happens that there is a negative decision, which is being recommended, at that point, I think we should take a view on that, because it's important. It's about resident safety, about resilience, and also they also do the climate emergency, the flooding and the fires that we had in the summer. They were part of that team as well. So it's quite a major lot. They can provide people with full detail of what they do if they want to, but I feel it's would be quite a challenge if that went.
Thank you for the update.
I was just going to say, I believe that they responded when the Didcot power station collapse occurred. Quite a major incident, wasn't it?
Yeah. Not that they're not needed, it's that, say, I mean, 9/11 was a tester for the whole country, wasn't it? And everyone had to prepare. Everybody had to prepare for a society that none of us really wanted to be living in. And if that was why it came about. So if it is removed, and there's nothing put in its place, we'll be going backwards, not forwards.
Thank you.
Actually, I should have perhaps commented that the Buckingham Community Wildlife project meeting. I'm particularly trying to find out how we're getting on with the Railway Walk Conservation Group and recruiting somebody who from the community who is prepared to take on the coordination, because we do really need somebody from the community.
Fortunately, not good news, no success yet. The aim was to set up not just one person, but a small group of people to take the lead on it. Unfortunately, nothing, no one has stepped forward yet, but it's something we're still working on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know it's trivial to say it, but I can't say it enough. The Railway Conservation Group over their lifetime has probably saved this council an absolute fortune with all the things that they actually did. If we had to do those things, we would find it difficult to resource. So this is rather important that we try to get an outside organisation or someone to take it on. I'm absolutely sure that you've done everything you can to track people. But maybe we need to do one of the things is just saying we need somebody isn't always the easiest way to do it. I think that perhaps we should do a short video down there about what the Railway Walk does, what it is, what we need a conservation group, especially as we come into spring now. Many of the work that they've done, those glades that they've opened up, and those trees that they've copied and stuff's coming back to life. A short, maybe 1.5 minute video about we need someone to come along and take this with all the actual wildlife coming on green. That might look attractive for somebody to come in. If we wait for 12 or 18 months and the environment would have moved, we've got 18 months growth on everything. It's a big job for anyone to come in and then get back to where it was. They had a plan and you could see it evolving. So I'd like to suggest that we look at doing that and find an appropriate person to talk about it down there, because I think people will listen to something for 1.5 minutes, any longer than that, and then they turn off. But just do a video down there to try and attract people to it as another option, and then that could go out wider.
Lisa? Thank you. The university's got a media department. Could we ask them if they could put something on their news channel even? They do go around to our events and do video. Maybe we could ask them to do a little piece, might be somebody from the university who's keen to get involved.
Buckingham News, isn't it? Buckingham News.
Yeah, Buckingham News. Yeah. Could we ask them?
It just occurs to me there's the 3B radio now as well, isn't there? We could actually see if we could get a slot on that.
Yeah, well done. Yeah.
To not just to ask for volunteers, but to actually talk about the Railway Walk.
Yeah.
How lovely it is. And it's so close to the university as well.
Yeah.
We'll try everything, even not one thing in isolation. I would think the video is very cheap to make, and we could do that. We've made videos with our Madam Mayor's made videos about things, and they've always actually, if you look at the way they're received, and you see how many people actually react to them, it's quite a lot. And also, if the university wants to do something to promote it, that's good. And the radio and the small channel you said as well. The more we do, it might actually find that one person who's sat at home thinking, I really think I want to go and do that, but we may not have got to them yet.
With huge respect, I think the Tinswick Road end of the Railway Walk isn't lovely at all.
That's not ours.
I know it's not. It is half of it though. I think it's a horrible muddy mess. It looks dank and dingy and dark. And also, when you get to the end of it, the notice still says it's maintained by ABDC, and it's just being really neglected at the moment. So, yes, it's we want to be careful about how much we say it's lovely.
Well, just to come back, the railway walk that's the scenic walk, as Derek would say. Would always
What's that
remind us,
called?
that's called the scenic walk, and ours is the railway
It's
walk.
not very scenic.
I can give you some assurance that I am battling on behind closed doors about moving that forward. What I can't tell you is what I can't tell you, but what but I can assure you that it's as much as how it would be implemented and how the scheme would be progressed. The Buckinghamshire Council are well aware that there is a cycleway along that. They're well aware that the aspiration is to illuminate that. I think they can. You can safely say that they have been told on enough occasions about it. When it comes to being improved, the lighting and stuff and the track would improve. The area which is muddy is to do with the drainage, which periodically they come and correct the drainage to do with the walkway in St Rumble. That area is the worst area. Unless there's another area which I haven't seen.
It's the whole area from the university car park up to the Tingsbridge Road that's muddy.
Well,
The whole lot is.
the university car park. Are you actually on the railway walk or are you on the
Well, starting from there-ish, it's all, it's
Well, it
all
won't
the
be till
Bucks' car.
I'll have a look at I'll try and well, I'm limping at the moment, so I'll try and limp down there gradually and have a look at some point because I've got a sports injury, you know, from the pancake race.
Ask a question.
Yeah, sure.
Do the railway walk conservation volunteers just look after our half?
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay, so we've had some suggestions about communications, which I imagine the.
So received and they're all good ideas.
Yeah,
It is on the action list, it's action number 9, and we were looking to bring a report for the next environment meeting. It says March, but it'll be April anyway.
yeah,
I think,
thank you. In which case, we're moving on to the new cemetery update, please.
So it's just to update members really with, as you'll know, we are up to consultation. What we're doing now is going to go back to the cemetery planning company. This what was option A on the previous reports that we did. So
go with her, Ryan. Go with her. Don't leave her on her own. He got straight up and went.
If we go out there, I probably know most of them, so I don't know whether to come out there. Not that it's a bad thing, it'd be a good thing for them.
If I go out there, I can't limp after them quickly.
That's never any good, chasing after anybody. Definitely not.
But
It's because youth club's not open on Monday now.
What?
Youth club closed on Monday.
yeah, amazing that, isn't
I think they back up.
Okay. I think I mean, there's 4 of them out there now
Yeah.
already, so I doubt
it? I don't think they need all of us.
that,
I think Brandon would have told them what they need to know. by now.
We still low.
yes.
You're right. You okay?
Okay, so this incident has been dealt with. Thank you very much for the councillors who took action and to the town clerk.
Thank you very much.
And then we'll come back with the much less exciting, but actually probably equally but differently exciting new cemetery update.
So just to update everyone, we're going back to the cemetery planners and going to get proposals for basically the cemetery, just the access road, car park, and sort of a pared down version. It was actually option A, the external works only. So roads, the landscaping, all this sort of stuff, but then we need to talk to them about how we put the planning application in, possibly phasing the project into 3 phases instead of 2. So we still got planning for the building in the future, but then just putting the basics in, utilities and drainage and all that kind of stuff.
So when we're talking just utilities, are we talking mains, water and electricity, or are we talking sewerage as well?
Sewage is up for discussion. And there's, various different implications.
I just I put this item on the agenda mostly just to formally show that it's come back to environment and that it is now back with this committee to manage. I've sort of put Lee on the spot. There's not a huge amount extra to update other than the fact that we're obviously taking these actions and moving the project forward. But I thought it was very worth noting that this is now back. It's an environment project to be driven forward by this committee.
Yeah. Robin?
One thing you said there that worries me is you said planning. Considering it took us 5 years to actually get planning consent when we realised there was a Section 106 agreement done on it, which we never asked for, and that was why it took 5 years. I do think that we shouldn't get extra special treatment when it comes to planning. It should be done properly, but I do worry about it being tied up and being progressed at the same speed it was before, because that would be 18 months, 2 years, 5 years. I think we won't have anywhere to put anybody in Buckingham by that time. So I think we need to go back and look at the paperwork of the planning, make them aware of the necessity when we put it in. That isn't a planning reason, but and it shouldn't seek to see any favour from it. What I would hope is that we would get a quicker resolution to this application than we did the previous one to actually have a cemetery, which got included in the roundabout was progressed, the estate was progressed, and this sat there for a terribly long time. So I am nervous that you said planning. I don't think it needs to go outside this committee. I think it needs to carry on in this committee with the officers dealing with it. But just draw a red flag there when it comes to planning and dealing with Aylesbury. Have we had any early conversations with them around what we might be doing with our planning before we actually put it in, to be reassured that they'll realise that there is an emotive timeline we're working to not to put it too bluntly. I wouldn't want to be here in 18 months' time talking about the fact we haven't got our planning through, and then having to chair environment or the town clerk or the mayoress or mayor having to confront somebody to say that we can't bury you. So I think that this is an added pressure on you, which is nothing you've got no control out. All I seek is that you do have that conversation at the earliest opportunity and just inform the chairman, the committee who are appropriate, just so we know how it's progressing. Because if the planning isn't progressing, we may have to be somewhat less charitable this time.
So we've got outline planning. Obviously, this is just detailed planning and meeting all the conditions that have been stipulated by them. And of course, we'll update the committee as we progress with it.
5 years to get outline planning.
We've got that.
Yeah, it took 5 years.
Okay, yeah, comment noted. Nothing we can do about it here today, and I'm pretty sure the officers are aware of this. Nonetheless, thank you for raising it. Are we ready to go to the next agenda items, and that is news releases? Is there anything planned for?
We've discussed a couple already.
Yeah, we have discussed a couple, so is there anything else we need to say on this one? Yes, Robin.
I think once you've applied for the planning, can I suggest that we do a news release? Say we've applied for the material planning for the application, so there's not only a record of that here, there's a public record that we've applied for the planning permission to do the detailed thing. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. It shows the residents that we're trying to progress it, and then if heavens forbid there's a problem afterwards, we can have a public conversation about the other part of it.
Yeah. We're not there yet.
I know,
We're talking some.
I've got a lot of scars to. Oh,
Yeah,
Can I say, I definitely will have it in our
I know you
look
will.
at things to do when we hit that time.
mhm.
but we can't control it.
So in that case, we've got quite a few items also in what we call it, private session, confidential session. So I'd like to move through the next item, chair's announcement. That'll be quick because I don't think I have any. And the date of the next meeting is Monday, the 17th of April. I may not be here, but that's what the deputy
Exactly.
for.
Yep.
And so we're concluding, no, not the meeting, just the public session. So are we happy to move into private session? In that case, Claire, you can stop the webcast.
Rabina, do you want to dial back into a private session or for this last bit?
How do I do that?
You just go out and come back in, I think.
Fine.
If you stay put for the moment, let me just see if I'll just close down.
Email.
I think we're still on.
We are.
We are still on, yeah.